Good evening and welcome to Royal Daily Report, your #1 source for in-depth royal news and exclusive investigations. I'm your host, and tonight we're diving into one of the most sensitive and controversial stories surrounding the British monarchy in modern history. This is a story that has been whispered about for years, but never fully addressed until now. Stay with us for this exclusive report. For years, the public has asked quiet questions about Archie and Lilibet, questions that were never answered directly, questions that were never officially addressed. And for a long time, Buckingham Palace did what it has always done best. It stayed silent until now. According to sources inside the royal walls, the questions surrounding Archie and Lilibet have reached a point where they could no longer be treated as background noise. They've crossed a threshold from public curiosity to internal risk. Because, according to news on the ground, the monarchy itself has quietly started reviewing the legitimacy of its own future. Deep inside Buckingham Palace, there are documents the public is never supposed to see. Documents that don't speak in emotion, but in risk. Not in gossip, but in consequences. One such document was a strictly confidential internal memo circulated at the highest level. Addressed to King Charles III and members of the Privy Council, the Advisory Committee, responsible for matters of royal succession. Its subject was not politics, not money, not scandal. It was the births of Archie and Lilibet. The memo did not accuse. It did not speculate wildly. Instead, it did something far more serious. It assessed concerns. Concerns about legitimacy. Concerns about succession law. Concerns about reputational damage to the monarchy, if unanswered questions continued to grow. This alone tells us something important. The palace does not produce documents like this lightly. It does not involve the Privy Council unless the issue touches the very structure of the crown. And this memo made one thing clear from the beginning, even without proof of wrongdoing. The existence of persistent doubt had become a threat, not a media problem, an institutional one. To understand why the palace became uneasy, we need to go back to the moment it all began. The birth of Archie in May 2019. Royal births follow protocols that are older than most countries. They are not about spectacle. They are about verification. Traditionally, senior palace officials are informed. Details are confirmed. Public announcements follow a clear and familiar structure. But Archie's birth quietly stepped outside that framework. The delivery took place privately at Portland Hospital. Details were limited. Public verification was minimal. There was no dramatic moment, no immediate alarm. But inside an institution built on consistency, deviation matters. When something breaks from tradition without explanation, it is noticed not by the public first, but by the palace itself. And when the same pattern repeated again with the birth of Lilibet in 2021, the sense of unease did not fade. It deepened. Because in the royal system, protocol is not ceremony. It is protection. This investigation goes deep into palace secrets that have been hidden for years. If you want to stay informed on the most important royal developments, subscribe to Royal Daily Report right now and hit that notification bell so you never miss our exclusive reports. Guys, things are getting really serious in the palace. Observers within royal circles have noted Meghan Markle's public appearances during her pregnancies. Appearances that raised quiet questions behind closed doors. This was not about criticism and not about public judgment. It was about inconsistency. Certain appearances did not align with what medical professionals typically expect during pregnancy. Movements, timing, physical changes, things that taken alone mean nothing. But patterns matter. And within the palace, patterns are always examined carefully because the monarchy survives uncertainty. No conclusions were drawn, no claims were made. But by this point, the internal concern had shifted from "this is unusual" to "this requires review." Because once doubts begin to stack broken protocol, limited verification, visual inconsistencies, they no longer exist in isolation. They begin to form a question the palace never wanted to ask, but could no longer avoid. By the time internal reviews reached this stage, the palace was no longer looking at isolated moments. It was looking at a single question, quiet, uncomfortable, and powerful enough to destabilize the crown. Was surrogacy involved? Inside the palace, this question was not framed emotionally. It was framed legally, because surrogacy on its own is not controversial in modern Britain. It is legal, it is regulated, and it is increasingly common. But the monarchy does not operate under modern assumptions. It operates under ancient law. The concern was not how Archie and Lilibet may have been born. The concern was whether their births, under any alternative reproductive arrangement, would satisfy the strict legal definition required for royal succession. This is why the palace never wanted this question to exist, because once asked, it cannot be unasked, and once raised internally, it must be examined quietly, carefully, and completely. Now guys, according to sources in the royal walls, there is a mistake the palace admitted they may have made since the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. This mistake, it happened because they said nothing. Think about it. Historically, silence has protected the monarchy. It has allowed storms to pass without feeding them. It has preserved dignity where explanation might invite chaos. But this time, the silence behaved differently. Harry and Meghan had moved to the United States. Public appearances with the supposed children became even rarer. Photographs were limited. Moments that normally reassure the public simply didn't exist. And while the palace remained quiet, questions matured. Silence did not stop speculation. It concentrated it. What began as curiosity hardened into doubt. What began as doubt began to feel, to some, like avoidance. Inside the palace, this was no longer seen as a public relations issue. It was now a risk management problem. Because when an institution built on continuity allows uncertainty to grow unchecked, the damage compounds, and the palace could now see that happening in real time. We're uncovering information that mainstream media won't touch. Make sure you're subscribed to Royal Daily Report and share this video with anyone who needs to know the truth about what's happening inside Buckingham Palace. This is where the story stops being personal and becomes dangerous. The British line of succession is governed by the Succession to the Crown Act of 2013, built on principles far older than the modern world. At its core is one requirement: an heir must be of the body, a direct biological descendant born within a lawful royal marriage. For centuries, this definition was simple. The wife gave birth. The child was verified. The line continued. But modern reproductive science introduced a scenario the law never prepared for. Under UK surrogacy law, the woman who gives birth is the legal mother at birth, regardless of genetics. Parental orders can later transfer legal parenthood to the intended parents. But here is the fracture. Parental orders grant parental rights. They do not automatically grant succession rights. And no statute clearly confirms that a child born via surrogacy qualifies as an heir of the body under succession law. This creates a legal gray zone. The monarchy cannot afford to test in public, because if a challenge were ever raised, the palace could not rely on tradition alone. It would face legal scrutiny under laws never designed for this moment. And once succession law is questioned, it does not quietly return to sleep. It demands answers. There is a moment in every institutional crisis when concern crosses a line. For Buckingham Palace, that moment came when questions about Archie and Lilibet stopped circulating quietly and began demanding answers. By early 2025, reports citing sources close to the situation began appearing in respected outlets. These reports did not make accusations. They made something more dangerous: claims that the palace itself was aware of unresolved issues. Then came the pressure from outside. A public petition calling for independent verification of the children's eligibility in the line of succession gathered tens of thousands of signatures. The number itself mattered less than what it represented: a shift in public posture. This was no longer curiosity. It was challenge. Soon after, false claims began circulating that DNA results had been released. Those claims were later proven untrue. But by then, the damage was already done. Because in matters of monarchy, truth does not move as fast as doubt. Inside the palace, officials understood something crucial. Even false information can destabilize an institution if it spreads widely enough. This was the moment the issue stopped being theoretical. The palace was no longer managing questions. It was managing perception. And perception, once fractured, is extraordinarily difficult to restore. This story affects the future of the British monarchy itself. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report now to stay updated on every development in this unprecedented situation. We're committed to bringing you the facts others won't report. Institutions can ignore noise. They cannot ignore data. By 2025, polling revealed a quiet but significant shift in public confidence. A growing percentage of the British public expressed skepticism surrounding the births of Archie and Lilibet, nearly double what it had been just 2 years earlier. This was not outrage. It was erosion. And erosion is more dangerous than scandal because it happens slowly and invisibly until something collapses. Internationally, the impact was just as troubling. Royal appearances abroad were increasingly overshadowed by questions not about diplomacy, but legitimacy. Media coverage began framing the monarchy as secretive, divided, and unwilling to address uncomfortable truths. For younger generations, this was especially damaging. The monarchy's authority has always rested on continuity, the sense that the crown endures because its foundations are clear and unbroken. But when succession becomes uncertain, continuity begins to look like confusion. And confusion is not something the crown can survive indefinitely. The British monarchy does not survive on popularity. It survives on clarity, clear rules, clear lines, clear succession. For centuries, the crown has endured wars, scandals, abdications, and revolutions. Not because it avoided controversy, but because it maintains certainty at its core. That certainty is now being tested, not by open rebellion, not by public outrage, but by unanswered questions quietly acknowledged within the institution itself. The palace may never publicly reveal what it knows. It may never confirm what it has reviewed. It may never explain how close this issue came to becoming something far larger. But the existence of internal concern tells us everything we need to understand. Because monarchies do not fear rumors. They fear ambiguity. And ambiguity, once embedded in succession, does not fade with time. It grows. The implications of this story are enormous. Don't miss any updates. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report and turn on all notifications. We'll continue following this story as it develops and bring you information you won't find anywhere else. The story of Archie and Lilibet is not finished. It cannot be, as long as questions remain unresolved at the highest levels. The future of the crown carries an asterisk one, written not in public headlines, but in confidential memorandums marked strictly confidential. And history has shown us one final truth. When the palace prepares in silence, it is never without reason. Thank you for watching this exclusive investigation from Royal Daily Report. This is a developing story that will shape the future of the British monarchy for generations to come. If you found this report informative, please subscribe to Royal Daily Report, hit the like button, and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Do you think the palace should address these questions publicly? What will happen to the line of succession if these concerns aren't resolved? Join the conversation in the comment section. And remember, for the most comprehensive royal coverage and investigations that go beyond the surface, Royal Daily Report is your trusted source. We'll continue monitoring this situation closely and bring you updates as they emerge. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next report.